Hey guys, what's up? This is Twisted Mind, and this is our raw cap footage of the first boss we killed in Terrace of the Endless Springs. It's called the Protectors of the Endless encounter. If you've done the Old War Council type encounter, you should be familiar with how this works. These are actually three separate health pools. When you kill one of these guys, the other two will heal all the way back up to full. So even though there's three, don't be tempted to cleave, just kill one at a time. And then the fight will change depending on the order in which you kill them. And as an added bonus, if you kill one of the more difficult guys last, you'll be rewarded with gear that has a little bit of a few extra eye levels on it. And my group is super hardcore, so of course on the very first night we're trying this without ever previously doing this on beta, we're going to do it on hardcore mode. Now, since there is a possible of 3 different ways of killing them, I can't go through everything that they all do because each time one of them is killed, the other 2 will get an extra ability. So there's a lot of different combinations to do it, but here's what we did. At the start of the fight, all 3 of the guys are up. Here's their base abilities. So you can see I'm holy for this fight. Make use of my rolling absorb, that echoes of light, so you can see the people getting debuffed. I'm trying to game that for my mastery to save mana. We're 2 healing this because this is like our second or third, or no, we're 3 healing this, but this is like our second or third pull of the night, and we just hit the enrage in the last pull, so obviously we know we can do it, so I'm starting the fight by doing DPS. What I'm kind of looking at is these little debuffs that are popping up in the random people that kind of look like Curse of Tongues. That's a dot. It'll never be dispelled. The hardcore guy that we're going to leave up to the end will just continue to cast this on each raid member. So this is going to tax your healers as soon as it goes out on that person till the end of the fight. The other things that are going on, the guy called Elder Regale, he's the one that's putting out this stupid thing that I have to dispel, and it's also the reason we have to loosely spread. Basically, we have a dispel order because it does a lot of damage that isn't like unhealable, but you'd want to get it dispelled as fast as possible. So we actually have not just a dispel as fast as possible, we also have an order. I go from the top down, someone else goes bottom up. And you really want to get them out because it also stuns them, and since we're hardcore, we need all the DPS we can get. He's also casting these lightning bolts. Basically, there's 2 ads that are casting lightning bolts, and they're both the elders, Elder Regale and Elder Asani, whatever his name is, Asani. They can both be interrupted, both of these nukes. They do splash damage too, or at least I think one of them does splash damage, so you kind of want to keep a loose spread, and you kind of want to have like melee and an interrupt rotation, but as you can see, sometimes if a spare one gets through, that's not the end of the world. So we down the first guy. Try to conserve your mana, but you also want to use your mana cooldowns as soon as possible, because as you'll see at the end of the fight, I get pretty strapped for mana, so as a healer, even as 3 heals, really manage that mana at the beginning. If you kind of go back through and look at what I was doing, there's a lot of times where I'm doing some pretty tricky things that I couldn't comment on because I was talking about the general strategy, but there are things like reacting to crits. If I just crit a target who just got one of the big heals from from one of my crits or something, then I wait for the echoes of light to run out on them before I put another heal on them. These are the people that are debuffed with that dot that's doing damage to them, and I'm sort of prioritizing them, but I'm also trying to spread my heals out accordingly and do smart use of mending between those 2 people, because on this fight, perf mending is absurd because it will always try to bounce to those people with the dots, so try to game that. So Cowlin is still alive, yeah. And so is Elder Asani. Now, Asani was the one that was dropping those little things in the first phase. Well, in this phase, he gains a new thing to drop. It's that thing that's coming out of the sky that's attackable. Basically, you don't want that to hit the ground, or else, like, I don't know, bad shit happens. I don't know what happens, but basically you don't want it to hit the ground. Like, you don't want it to expire and, like, do whatever it does to them. Everybody wants to run into it. I know I said spread out loosely, but you want to run in, you want to kill this thing, because if you're standing next to it, you get a haste buff. So yes, do that. And then also, that guy that we're leaving up till the end, because we're hardcore, his name's Protector Cowlin, he starts doing this thing where he just puts those white things on the ground. As you can see, they're just all over there. Got a tank off to the side. He's trying to place them in a very smart location, try to put them close together. He's doing a great job of having them clustered up. That way, it minimizes the amount of space it's taking up, and you'll see why at the end of the encounter, why space is so important to minimize for those little void zones that he's placing there. So that's the other ability that he's now dealing with. Also, every time you kill one of these guys, damage ramps up. So I'm kind of like more paying attention to the tanks than I did in the first phase, trying to get some bigger heals on them. You'll see that on this, as I'm holy, I really try to keep Light Spring in between the 2 groups because, you know, inevitably, I am healing with a shaman and a druid. Their splash heals are going to get that big group that's clustered together, but the guy who's way off to the side, probably not going to get any healing, so I try to get light springs on him, or I try to place it in a way that he'll run next to it, so he'll keep sucking up all of the light well charges. And what's up? This is what happens when you kill the Asani guy, and then the last guy is up, Cowlin. He places that little, see, it's like a sphere in the middle of the ground over there that puts out this crazy huge radius. That thing does like it does like a ton of damage if you're standing closer to it, but basically you could, I mean, standing next to it for sure is an instant death. We had melee just dropping from full to like 10% of their health, and they were close to the edge of it. So it just was like, it does a ton of damage. We're looking at our boss timers and saying like, it's about to happen, and then like everybody just like runs. So I'm sorry if you're a melee, you're going to lose a little bit of DPS on this phase. Ranged are the ones that get to just like stand in place and burn. But another thing you can see is since it's such a huge radius, we're spread out, and I sometimes dip in and out of like healing range of the tanks, and then keep in mind, in this, they keep getting more damage as the phases go on. So this is the last phase. The tanks are just getting worked here, and I've been really concentrating on trying to get my mana. Like this is one of the fights where I don't really demonstrate great usage of like Shadow Fiend Mindbender use. I mean, I use it enough to get by because that's my theory on mana. Is like you need enough to get by. On this fight, I really tried to do as many tricks as I possibly could, like maxing out my mastery, reacting to crits, making sure that Lightwell was like on people, trying to work with that hot, trying to do clever Serenity refreshes to save mana with heal in the first phase. Like I'm really trying to save it, and as you can see, I'm like just scraping at the bottom of the barrel at the end here, and this is like a long phase too. Like this is like, because we're doing it on hardcore super heroic, it takes a while to do this last phase, and I'm like strapped for mana. So another thing I'm doing is I'm doing that thing that I kind of did in the guards encounter, like the Stone Guardians and the Mogushan Vaults, that first week, is I'm kind of really starting to pay attention to where my other raiders' hots are. Like you can see here, the Riptides and the Druid hots, I'm kind of like looking at where those are, and I'm really trying to make sure that if we have like things on the ground, like we're doing circles, it's a waste of mana for me to put Sanctuary in the ground, but the other two guys will have their circles line up. I try to make sure I'm in that in-between between the two of those without outranging the tank, because the tank is like way out there, because not only is the melee group like we're trying to be at max range so we don't get clipped by this this circle radius, he's even further back because he's pointing him away from the group and still trying to place those void zones in good locations. That nasty dot that he's putting on people that kind of looks like Curse of Tongues is about to go out on our last raider, which means it's now out on all 10 raiders, so everybody's taking damage. So now we're starting to coordinate our cooldowns. We're trying to use some personals. Melee are really being careful not to run into that the next spawn, but we're about to run out of room here, so it's kill or be killed. And the enrage we determined was, I think, 8 minutes, so we're getting close to the enrage here. Really trying to maximize Cascade, which is great for this part, obviously. Our druid's in tree form. And when I think like we're a little bit stable, I try to help a little bit with some DPS at the end, because I do have that little last chunk of mana to squeeze out, and ta-da, we drop him. This is like I said, either a second or third attempt on him, maybe. I mean, like right after coming out of that instant one-hit wonder on Heart of Fear, so good luck and have fun.